Hello, hello again. This is Travis P. of the YYZ coming to you with another Deck Tech Talk. Just kidding. I just had to borrow Steve's intro there for a second. Hey, so I wanted to talk about the alternate forms of Yuffie that I had in mind to actually run up to Zanarkand 3. I had 3 versions of Yuffie set up, a Fire Wind, a Mono Wind Fat Chocobo list, which is what I ended up running, and an Earth Wind. And if you would like to see the Mono Wind Fat Chocobo list, you can check out the Zanarkand 3 video. I will link it in the description below. It's a very long video, but if you just watch the beginning, I have a section, it's even, I think, marked out in the timestamps for just the deck tech. So if you want to see the Fat Chocobo version, I ultimately went with that version because, is it the strongest one? It might be. It certainly, I think, is the easiest to pilot, but I don't know. There are some things that the Fire Wind and the Earth Wind do have advantages over it, so I didn't want to leave those out. So I thought I would go over them here. We're going to start with Fire and Wind. But yes, if you want to check out the Fat Chocobo Mono Wind list, check out the start of that video. I will link it in the description below. So Yuffie was our... she wasn't the box topper. That was Sonnen. So it kind of, the image is the same. The big old Chase signature card. But who cares about that? It's free online when you see something on Octagon. So hooray. So Yuffie, if you're not familiar with her, is a card that is absolutely worth building around, and I totally overlooked this card because, like a lot of folks, I think we all just didn't realize how strong her auto ability is. So anyway, she has haste, 9k, 5 costs. When she attacks, you activate all the forwards you control until the end of the opponent's turn. Until the end of your opponent's turn, very clear. I almost tricked myself again, like, wait, that can't be right. No, that's it. She gains 1,000 power, and Yuffie cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities. Makes her pretty darn hard to get rid of. Someone has to have something to do on the attack trigger before she can, at the start of combat. And then she has Doom of the Living, which for a special 2-wind, you dollar, choose any number of forwards and you divide up to 24,000 damage among them as you like. So the point behind all of these decks is just to get Yuffie out there, let her carry the day, and then mainly surround her with protection. So I kind of talked about her a bit more extensively in the Mono Wind one. Here I'm just going to follow up and say, so what are some of the differences? Why play Fire, Fire Wind over the Mono Wind? So some answers. So at first, of course, you've got some staple stuff. Extra copies of Yuffie here. We've got 3 copies of both of these. You could even do, and I think in the material list, the Earth Wind version, I have 2 copies of the 1-cost Yuffie, which you could run those as well. I don't think it really matters. I actually had someone ask me after the Fat Chocobo list, why not run the 1-cost on the offhand chance you actually want to put that one on the field, and then maybe it can do something, right? Because it's unblockable by bigger forward. So I was like, yeah, but honestly, I didn't even want that temptation, because my fear is if you ever put another Yuffie on the field, if your opponent's smart, they'll just never get it off the field if they can help it, because they don't want you to put the big one down. So I don't even want that temptation, but if you want to, for whatever reason, you can. So Fire Wind, we get to tap in. So let's go over some of the wind stuff first, and I'll go into really the fire side. Edge, he's in the Fat Chocobo list. Again, he's your protection. Zidane, Y'shtola, these were all in the main wind list as well. It's just forms of protection. Some new things we do get here, because the Fat Chocobo list is basically required to run characters, because Fat Chocobo can't draw summons. I guess you could still you run them anyway, but I don't like the risk of that. We can draw some more summon-based things here, and we have Lulu to recur summons, and then we have Asura, and Chocobo, and Amaterasu. And I kid you not, Amaterasu is one of the main reasons to play the Fire version, because being able to cancel their Shantoto, their Titan, their whatever it is you're afraid of, Amaterasu alone is actually what almost made me run this list. This was probably my secondary choice. However, Asura is a fantastic summon. You can get a character of 2 or less from the break zone back, add it to your hand. The main target is it reads, hey, get a Yuffie special, which is absolutely fantastic. You can get back the Cater if you just need CP, or the Edge if you want the protection, but usually I'm going to use this to get back a Yuffie special. Of course, it can give you your backups back if you really need that. And on occasion, I will actually use the forward activation. So, for example, let's say I'll attack with Yuffie. On the attack trigger, before she reactivates, someone will try to cast Sephiroth on me. The back attack and Sephiroth, break a dull forward. I've used Asura before on the stack, reactivate her. Now she's no longer a valid target for Sephiroth. Or let's say they actually have something to kill Yuffie. So I'll go to combat, and let's say they wait for me to attack. So, okay, I declare the attack with Yuffie, which is technically the smart thing to do because now I don't have Doom of the Living, and they'll say, okay, on the stack, before she reactivates and she's untargetable, let me cast my 5-cost Odin, just outright killer, or let me cast Cactor, outright killer. I can't actually save the Yuffie, but what I can do is, well, okay, Asura, reactivate her, and now before she dies, I can Yuffie special and still hit their board. Doesn't come up a whole lot, but the versatility of Asura is just absolutely insane. But for the most part, I'm using it to recur the Yuffies, to just do Yuffie special fodder. And that is one thing that I do like about this deck and the Earth deck. There's actual recursion in here, so you can recycle the Yuffies. That was kind of one of the downsides of the Fat Chocobo one, is that there was no recursion, which the plus side mean is you never care if they hit your break zone. You're like, go ahead and clean it out. But you also then can't recycle stuff. So Asura is recyclable. Chocobo is just an absolutely absurd summon that, again, when they try to kill your Yuffie, you can just Chocobo it back to your hand, protect it. Now, you still have to be a little careful because if they do that in combat, she can't attack again immediately. So I wouldn't put her right back out because she needs to have her protection. You do not want to pass the turn if she's not immune to effects as long as you can help it. So if I Chocobo her back to hand to save her, chances are I'm going to wait till the next turn to then run her out again. And she has haste, so you can run her out, the turn you play her. Also, if there's another key card, you really want to save Zidane for some reason, or you want to bounce the edge for some reason, you can Chocobo for that as well. And I'll just talk about Amaterasu's Amaterasu. Cancels any auto ability, can kill it from a forward. Legit, the reason Terra and the Lulu are in here is because it's all protect the Yuffie. These can basically read as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't even count. I'm so crazy. So these basically read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of Amaterasu or Chocobo Asura if you need them too, but Amaterasu especially. They're just in here to keep recycling these summons. Protection and, protection. It's what it is. Protect your Yuffie, get back your Yuffie, get rid of them. And then so finally on the win side, we have the Nordstalin package to talk about the backups. Althea, I did have this at 2 copies. I cut it down to 1 to fit one other thing in here. You could bump this up to 2 if you really want to. Usually it's what I will search out with Nordstalin. 1 copy of Mena will search any ninja on a burst, so that includes Big Yuffie, any of the little Yuffies, and Edge. I find this backup line to be very tight, trying to balance the colors. I would love to just jam more Mena in here, and maybe if you want to, you can jam more Mena in here, but I was trying to keep the fire numbers up. Leafkin, he's in the fatty version. He probably won't come up a whole lot often, but he's nice because on damage 3, he says, go get Big Yuffie, immediately play her to the field, which is absolutely awesome and worth it. Iris, it's just protection. It's just, and there is a way to, hey, again, if they try to Sephiroth the Yuffie, you can just break the Iris, keep her alive. ZG actually has a dual purpose in Firewind, which is nice. So normally in the Fat Chocobo one, the purpose was just search out other copies of Yuffie. He can absolutely do that here. He also has Light Aerith, which he can target. But his other dual purpose leads into the fire side, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then finally we have Godo. Yuffie will blink and have 1,000 power, so she'll be at 10k automatically. She'll go to 11k when she attacks. And importantly, an attacking Yuffie you control gains first strike. Now, at first, that probably doesn't seem that great. However, something a lot of folks will do if they're playing fire, they will Amaterasu your Yuffie. So Yuffie goes to attack, they hit Amaterasu. Now, it doesn't kill her, but she no longer has protection, and because she's taken 8,000 damage, they can put any blocker in front of her. If you watch that stream I did of Zanarkand 3, you'll see I lost her a few times on that final match because they would Amaterasu and they just block with the body. If you have Godo, that's no longer an option for them unless they also have first strike. So now they put the body in the way, you tap Godo, be like, okay, you dealt her 8, and yeah, you removed her protection, but now first strike, she survives the combat. And that is huge, because even though she can now still technically be chosen on their turn, that means they've blown an Amaterasu, lost a body, and then whatever else they have to use to get rid of her on their turn. Like, that's a lot of investment. So I really like Godo here. Again, he was one that you can absolutely bump him up to 3 if you think he's... I don't know if he's that important. I don't know. Like I said, it was really tight on space for colors. And so let me finally talk about the fire side. What does the fire bring? 1 copy of Susano, just as a backup board wipe if you don't have big Yuffie and you don't have the special in hand. Sometimes it can be nice to just have the backup one. Hopefully you don't really ever have to cast him. Cater is in here specifically for color fixing because, again, if you look down here, there's only 15 fire cards in this deck. And so I was a little worried about the numbers. Terra's, again, here for the burst. Amaterasu, of course, is the big reason. Kuchaspel. Kuchaspel is quite nice. 1, it can be searched out by Norstalen, so you can color fix that way. And then, of course, if they have any kind of protection, if they're playing Yazuki or it's Iridia, Yuffie can't actually blow those cards up with her special. Same with, like, the Garland. So having a way to turn that off is very nice. Without a doubt, one of the biggest reasons I'm playing Fire is actually Elf. And I saw someone else using this on Octagon, and I don't even know if it was in a Yuffie deck or if it was just a Fire Wind. And so shout out to whoever that was. I can't remember what their username was, but... Elf is a great turn 1 backup to see now because of ZG, because of this Avalanche operative I never even knew existed. Turn 1, if you see Elf, play him to the field, you go search out ZG, you can play ZG, and you're color fixed. You've got Fire and Wind. And I do really appreciate the consistency of that is you can get the Norstalen early, or you can get Elf. Elf or Norstalen can completely color fix you. It just gives you such a good backup setup. You're not playing backups for free like in Fatty deck, so you got to pay for them the honest way. But Elf is just such a good start because this guy's an Avalanche operative, so the synergy here is fan-frickin-tastic. Lil T's just in here as a 3 cost that backup helps you search, can dig, can also be pulled off the Norstalen. So again, let's say you happen to also draw Althea Kuchaspel, you can go search him out. We talked about Mena. Althea is, of course, Althea. Cloud is actually... I never thought I'd see a use for this card, but he's quite good here. His versatility is... Usually you're probably not going to use the last effect, which is you choose a forward basically already on your board and go search out another copy of it. You could do that with Yuffie if she's already on the board. I've never had him come in when she's already been on the field. And it even says a forward with the same name. So as long as this Yuffie's on the field, you don't even have to search out that Yuffie. You can search out one of the baby copies. However, he also recurs a Category 7 forward from the break zone, which is what I most commonly use him for. He says, get back a copy of Yuffie. So it's another way to recur Yuffies to our hands. And then if it's relevant, you can also just ping a forward for 5,000 damage. I've done that, I think, once or twice. Usually I'm getting back a Yuffie from the break zone. But again, if you ever have the Yuffie on the field, you can use them to go search it out. So that is what the Fire brings to it. Aerith is also a fantastic card in here. I usually try to stay away from light or dark cards these days, but Aerith is just so good. She's basically free. She will get you back the 2 cards you pitched if they're both 7 characters. It's characters, so she counts the backups. You can pull back. And again, she gets you back copies of Yuffie, which I've used before, is I'll spend the special, play Aerith to the field. Now Aerith gets them right back. And this is a pretty key part. Her action ability can actually be very relevant protecting the Yuffie. So once she can use her action ability, so she's been on the field for a turn, you pay 1, put Aerith into the break zone. You have to be able to dull her. And you can choose a dark forward, break it. Meh, we don't really care about that. More importantly, choose a Category 7 forward you control, dull it. It gains this forward, cannot be broken until the end of the turn. So when they go to, okay, hit her with the Odin, hit her with the Sephiroth, whatever it is, you play the Aerith, boom, or you use the Aerith ability. Okay, well, she can't die this turn. And what's really nice is I've used that before on the stack of the Yuffie trigger. So Yuffie goes down, they cast the Odin or whatever, Aerith dulls her, she can't be broken, but then Yuffie pops herself right back up. So now, even if they were to block her, she's unbreakable till the end of the turn. I really love that effect. So, again, what are the reasons to play this over the Fatty deck? You get the color diversity, which is nice. It does have a really nice ramp up now with Elf and ZG and the Norstalen package, of course. Amaterasu, I think, is one of the key reasons. I do love the recursion abilities in here, whether it's through Aerith or Cloud, etc. So I do really like this version. And again, I was heavily leaning towards this. I think I ultimately went with the Fatty just because I thought it was, again, ran a little smoother and was a little simpler. But there were some fears in that deck. I knew if I ran into certain matchups, I was like, ugh. That could really stomp me. When you're putting all your eggs in the Yuffie basket, again, this will still be somewhat vulnerable to decks that run things like Famfrit or maybe water with a bunch of bounce. But we at least have some ways to combat that. So that's the Fire Wind version. Give it a try, especially if you like Fire. I think you'll really like the way it runs. Oh, real quick on the numbers. You can absolutely fudge some of these numbers. So originally I had 2 Iris. I had 2 Goda, but the problem was everywhere I found I could cut, I had to cut. I wanted to cut from the Fire. Like, yeah, you could go down to 1 Cloud. I don't actually think you need 2 Cloud. But then the problem is you have less Fire. And that was just my concern is, you know, when you get this Elf turn 1, you want to be able to actually cast him, and you don't want to have to throw out Amaterasu. Even though you can get it back, you don't really want to ever have to throw out Amaterasu if you can help it. So that's why things like 2 Cloud, you know, 3 Elf, just trying to go for those Fire numbers. Feel free to adjust as needed. Now, for those of you who like to play Earthwind, we have a list for you as well. Welcome to Yuffie's Materia. So this one was based around the Retainers package. They naturally fit well into Earthwind, so they seemed like a nice complement for her. And this deck, okay, so that's some of the Wind features. Again, you have your copies of Yuffie, Edge, Zidane, all these cards that do the exact same thing in this deck. Asura does the same thing here. Mena, Search Out a Ninja, just like the last one. Iris is for protection. Godo, Althea, Norstalin. Aerith has the exact same function. Zidane. So all those cards do the same thing here. There are Iris actually now has a second feature because her first effect is online because you actually have 15 forwards in here. So that can be relevant. Godo, of course, and this Moogle is just to help for color fixing. So all the Wind stuff is pretty much exactly the same in here as it pertains to Yuffie. New things, of course, well, the Retainer package. So we have 3 copies of Noctis, 3 copies of Prompto, 3 Gladiolus, only 2 of Ignis, and I went with this Ignis, 1 to help the Earth colors a little more, as you can see, 33 to 19. 2, while the other Ignis is fine, I don't find him so overwhelmingly great that I feel I have to jam him in here, especially since this isn't really a cast-heavy deck, so his reactivating all characters just isn't as valuable. I liked the burst. I actually think the 1K Brave is very relevant. I remember there was a match that because he was out, whoever came down, I think it was Prompto came down, and instead of doing 8K off the Noctis trigger, he did 9K because of Ignis, and that was what I needed. I needed it to be 9K. So that's why I went with this Ignis. Absolutely, you can throw in the other one if you prefer, but I think this one works a little better here. The Retainer package, what's also nice is Noctis triggers off of any Wind or Earth forward that enters the field. So I've had Yuffie trigger off of him. Yuffie triggers, boom, hits something for 9K, and she can immediately go in and attack. So what advantages does Earth bring besides Retainer package? We get access to Kusith, which is more recursion on a summon, which is nice. We get access to Mist Dragon, which is, yes, a bit of a reactive summon, but again, the point is we want to protect Yuffie. Yuffie can carry the day. If she needs to, Mist Dragon says cancel Amaterasu. It also says if they've got some big thing in their break zone that you're worried about, get rid of it. And you can also technically dull Yuffie and prevent her from receiving damage if that's relevant. So again, it's just protection, just in a different color. Typhon, really good against early angry boards if we can't get to the Yuffie or whatever else. Lael is a target off of Norstalin. I always appreciate when Norstalin can color fix for us. Again, I almost always go for Althea, but there are some games I'm happy to go for the color fix. And again, Lael can cancel Amaterasu, so helps keep our Yuffie alive. Tyro just searches anything in the deck. EX Burst. The color fixing isn't really needed, but, you know, if it gets there, if it gets to damage 5. Shantoto, one of the reasons I actually considered this deck. I ultimately didn't go with it, and I think it was the right choice, but against opponents who go wide, who go aggressive, I was always a little worried, oh man, what if I can't see the Yuffie with the special as well, and, you know, make sure I can get it off? Well, Shantoto's a backup for that, so one of the big reasons to always play Earth is good old Shantoto. Jesse's an excellent searcher. She searches for any Category 7 forward, and it lets you go get out your Yuffie right away, and it's your Earth colors. One of the other reasons I enjoy playing Earth in this deck. So, I believe I went over all the cards. Let me just double check. Yeah, because most of them were repeats from the Wind and just the new Earth stuff. What advantages does this one have over the Fire Wind or the Fat Wind, Mono Wind? One thing I do like about this one, and which is why it was such a hard decision on which one to actually play in that tournament. So not only do you have things like Shantoto, I think this one is a little more resistant to aggression or people going wide. I also like the retainer package quite a bit. There have been games where I either don't see the Yuffie or they have the answer to it. And I've had to pivot and go to the backup plan of the retainers and have actually won games where Yuffie is a lost cause, and for whatever reason that is. Okay, here comes Noctis. Boom, there's Prompto. Hit him right away. Here's Gladiolus. Yeah, he's a big dumb body, but hey, he triggers Noctis. And that really inspired me with the deck and actually gave me a lot of confidence in it that, oh boy, like... there's an actual backup game plan, which the other two decks just don't really have. Those other two decks it's Yuffie or bust. Maybe you could argue with the fat Chocobo version that, like, yeah, Bismarck can kind of get you there, but they're mainly all in on Yuffie as your primary form of attacking and removal, and the retainers really do give you an alternative. So between the retainers and the Shantoto, I would say that is the biggest advantage to picking this deck over one of the other colors. Now, you should take this with the grain of salt it is intended to be, but this deck is arguably cursed. At least it is when I play it. I was playing with Jared some time ago too, and he said the same thing. He's like, I don't know what it is about Earth Wind. It's just cursed. And he was having the same issue. I just can't seem to draw the backups in this deck, which is so weird, right? I mean, it's got 17 backups. Look at that. We've got 17. We have Norstalen. We have backups that search out backups. For whatever reason, this one I struggle the most to get the backups down and like have the successful ramp I want to have with it. I don't know why that is. Technically, that shouldn't be connected to anything, and you reasonably and rationally shouldn't take that into your account of why you would or wouldn't pick a certain deck. However, I'm a human, and I'm bound to my emotions, and I also see, well, this deck runs smoothly 5 out of 5 times, and this deck doesn't ever seem to run smoothly ever. So, but again, that's being irrational. Assuming your luck isn't absolutely wretched, this should run smoothly for you as well. So, that is the Earth Wind version. I have showed you the Fire Wind version, and again, if you would like to see the Mono Wind Fat Chocobo version, check out the Zanarkand deck tech. I will list a link for all of these in the description below. All 3 deck lists and the video for Fat Wind if you would like to check that one out. Let me know if you try these. Let me know which one is your favorite. Do you have a completely different version of Yuffie? I think I saw someone run, was it Icewind? I think it might have been Icewind. And that's the thing, like, this card is just so self-sustaining and just so kind of dumb on its own that I don't think it really matters, nor do I think there's one that's like clearly, yes, far and away, this is the best version of this card. I think you probably could jam this into almost anything, but these were the 3 that I kind of gravitated towards the most, so let me know what you think. As always, I appreciate you watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. There's a Patreon if you're interested. Never required, but always appreciated. And until next time, take care.